An extraterrestrial event. A higher dimension. It's not like us. It's unlike us. We have many theories. Few facts.
What a wonderful movie. I can't say enough good things about this movie. I really like it, and I've seen it a million times, and there's a lot I want to go into, but I'm just gonna tell you what happens in it first. So the plot, without giving too much away, is that there's this thing called the Shimmer. It's a big bubble that's constantly growing and threatens to eat up the whole world. No one knows what's inside, but no one they've sent in has ever come back, except for one guy, this lady's husband. He just shows up one day coughing up blood, so his wife decides to go into the Shimmer with a group of people. Their job is to reach a lighthouse at the epicenter and see if there's a way to stop it, and they all slowly find out why no one ever comes back. This movie, like the other movies, descends into madness, but again in a different way due to the role Crazy plays in this movie. In Mandy, insanity is a tool for both the protagonist and the antagonist to use against each other. In Sorry to Bother You, it's created, nurtured, and exploited by the antagonist, and in this movie, it is the antagonist. A group of normal people need to walk to a lighthouse, in a place that breaks the concept of reality and tries to kill them. So eventually the conflict turns into, we gotta get there before we lose ourselves. And I know what you're thinking. It seems like all of the plots of the movies The Light this year start off kinda normal, but then descend into crazy. I think he also might have something for Tessa Thompson too, but she wasn't in Mandy, so that remains to be seen. Well, I definitely have my preferences, but I have an even bigger fetish for good sci-fi movies, and Daddy Denny was busy making Dune, so he didn't make a movie for me to, so Alex Garland will just have to do. Well, let's talk about him a little bit. He's a guy who made a previous movie called Ex Machina, which was a very good movie about a robot. So needless to say, I was excited for this movie. And the reason I like him is because I think we both like the same kinds of movies. So there's a lot of things to compare this movie to. In the beginning, it's very reminiscent of Arrival, with the research base overlooking the ominous alien thing. But once we really get into it, the movie is probably closest to Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, a movie about a bunch of guys who venture into an alien zone to find a magic wish-granting thing while trying to avoid the dangers the zone has to offer. It's essentially the same premise. The author of the book that this was based on took pretty obvious inspiration from the movie Stalker, as we can tell by the fact that the characters were all only named after their occupations. Alex Garland took a lot from Stalker 2, mostly visually with all of the overgrown landscapes and abandoned buildings, but that's not all I see in here. He seems to like Panos Cosmatos too. His previous movie, Ex Machina, felt like it took a lot of inspiration from Beyond the Black Rainbow, and I think I see a little bit of that in this one too. And some of the shots on the beach reminded me a little bit of On the Silver Globe, though that might have just been me pulling stuff out because of all of the other stuff. Point is, I think Garland likes him some good, possibly Soviet science fiction. And you know what he does? He takes all the tension from those movies and just shoves some legitimate horror into them. And I mean, that's probably the best thing that you could possibly do. Speaking of that... Pooh? Bitch. Paddington? Bitch. There's only room in film for one bear this year, and that's this boy. I'm sorry, Paddington, I love you too. There are a bunch of scenes I think of when I think of a perfect scene. The Dolong Bridge scene from Apocalypse Now, the ending scene of Frank, and the Harry Belafonte scene in Beetlejuice where they all start dancing and Shrimp grabs their faces. To make a perfect scene, you gotta do a little bit more than just don't fuck up once. It's something that goes above and beyond to make the scene work. The bear scene fits this criteria perfectly. I'm just gonna break the whole thing down. So there's a moment in this movie, first time watching, that I exclaimed, "Oh yeah, this is supposed to be some kind of horror movie, isn't it?" I was already really invested in the interesting sci-fi stuff, and then a lady gets jump scared into a room. It was a great introduction to the idea that these ladies are not safe here. Then they find a camera with a fun video on it.
Hold him up. There.
And I said, Oh, here we go, that was really fucked up, now we're getting to the good shit. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. So the scene we're talking about starts out with a rifle butt to the face and ends up tied to a chair. Now, this is an immediately tense scene starting with Gina Rodriguez losing it and threatening to kill everyone. It's a very delicate situation that is likely to end in the death of someone, and a fantastic scene that would be very good without the addition of anything. Now, the main point of contention here is that one of the characters earlier on in the movie was killed by a bear, but
I didn't actually see a bear.
Then, when she's about to cut everyone open, she hears her former squad mate scream, "Help me!"
Oh, yes.
And then everything suddenly gets worse. The beginning of this scene creates a great juxtaposition with the rest of the scene, as we have a character tie other characters up. This is someone that we've known and who it is possible to reason with, someone who could possibly be convinced into not killing anyone. Our characters are in a delicate situation where their actions, if handled right, could end in everyone being okay and happy. But then the scene replaces Gina Rodriguez with a skeleton bear, and those aren't reasoned with very easy. From a scene construction standpoint, this is a very interesting way to create tension, and that is definitely something you think about after the scene is over. Anyway, as he's walking in, you get a good look at the bear. It's a creepy motherfucker and I love him. He doesn't charge into the room. This man lumbers into the room. He thumps with every footstep. He gives us time to appreciate how he could kill our heroes in 3 seconds. And all this stuff is spooky, but none of this really puts the nail in the coffin. However, it speaks. As it's scanning the room for potential victims, it speaks in the screams of terror and pain of its former victim, and I think that's not terribly okay. I think that isn't something it should do. This moment is essentially a sound designer's wet dream, the kind where the sheets are soaked with piss. This is the scariest scene I have seen all year, and that's kind of saying something because I would say it was the best year for horror movies in a long time. This scene is scarier than all of 8th grade. And then the bear kills. It murders the shit out of Gina Rodriguez, but not before passively bowling everyone the fuck over using its raw bear power. There is nothing I think this scene could have done to make it any better in any way. It is a perfect scene. Goddamn. And I just spent a ton of time talking about specific things that make up pieces of the whole movie. So I think I should talk about the rest of it. Like I said before, it uses insanity differently than Sorry to Bother You and Mandy, but it takes the best of both worlds. In the beginning, like Sorry to Bother You, it takes place in our world and has Natalie Portman crying over her dead husband. And in the end, like Mandy, it has her staring into the void and it staring back. If you're looking for a good Lovecraftian horror that paces out its insanity, here you go. Speaking of the ending scene, it is fantastic. It's quiet and ponderous while also being heart-poundingly tense. And it's the scene I can best compare to Beyond the Black Rainbow, and shows off how Alex Garland sort of uses his influences. He takes a bunch of ideas and puts them in his story and does them his way, with a little bit more contemporary pacing and construction. But that's not actually a bad thing. The movie is incredible. It's super tense, entertaining, and very smart. It uses cinematography not just to dazzle, but also to tell its story. Its sound design is obviously amazing, and the music is on some 2001 shit. I cannot praise this enough. It is my favorite movie of the year.